So we're talking about the voices we listen to, and that's what we're getting into in this series right now. And next week we'll be more into scripture than we are right now. I thought this sign was funny. We don't have Wi-Fi, talk to each other, pretend it's 1995. To me, 1995 wasn't that long ago. However, Heath, how old were you in 1995? Six. Thank you very much. See, he's in the group. He's in the group that was these things started sometime after you were born. Okay, and you became adept at it. But your children and a group of people about 10 years younger than you, they never remember life before this. Okay, so that sign wouldn't mean anything to them. How we got here? Well, it started with a telephone. That was our first really good communication device broadly given to the public, but it was just a communication device, that's all. And I've talked enough about the past. Our house, even though it was 2 doctors in a very large home and they had the money, we had 1 telephone until the Princess phone came out. Then my folks decided they needed one of those. They had it in the bedroom, and all the kids wanted to use it because you pick up the receiver and it had to dial on it. And plus, it was more private in the parents' bedroom if they were gone. So, the answering machine and fax machines, those are one-way connections. And we thought that was beautiful because it made us able to be contacted when we aren't there. Right? So we can just send me a fax and I'll find it, leave a message on the answering machine. And when the answering machine came out, it was a little disturbing to some of us to hear the first, leave a message at the recording. I didn't do it the first time. I felt intimidated. And then when I did call our engineer back, I said, I hate talking to machines. And then I left him the message, and I hoped it wasn't something stupid. We're in an age now. Well, let me go back up and look at that again. Personal computers were originally simply for production and a storage device. My first computer, the biggest question was, what could you do? And we had these floppy disks, and they were HD floppy disks. And they, my phone has about 50 of those in here, I guess. It used to be called high density. More than that, Paul? Way more than that. Okay, probably 500 of them. I don't know. And so it was just a production and storage device is all it was. You would produce things on it that you could store and you could distribute to others. There was no internet, and you had to do that on a floppy disk. And if it was very big, you certainly needed an HD to spread that around. But it really did not connect you to the world. And that's in the early 90s. That's 1990. 1989, 88, right around in there. Personal computers were a big thing. And how many of you remember Compact? They're gone. But they made a portable personal computer just the size of carry-on luggage. And so it was a phenomenal advancement, we thought. Then internet as an information source connected the world, but it wasn't available to that many people. And so it came out, but not many of us were using it. And it was in its infancy. It was being used primarily by very large companies and military. Okay? Expensive cell phones came out. The first ones had a holster, and they were the size of a large Yeti cup. And you could hold them to your head and get brain cancer. And they, if you had one of those while you were somebody, because you were walking around with about $3,000 on your hip, when $3,000 could buy a pretty good car. Okay, used car, but a pretty good one. So the next thing that came out was the internet, and the cell phones were connected anytime by limited service. They wouldn't work where I live in Holly. They would work in Abilene, but not much past Abilene. Then the internet by computer came out. Social media starts with email and blogs. It was phenomenal. About 1995, we could talk to our missionaries in Bosnia by email, whereas sending reports literally by mail was what we were limited to before that. And it was really a blessing. But the thing about it, it was from paid providers. And paid providers only. And not everybody would have internet service. They'd still be using personal computers for production and storage. But the paid providers, then that changed to free social networks. What made social networks free? Advertisers broke in. Advertisers broke in. And this happened in the early 2002, around 2005 or 6, I would think, or that area there. Then there is an explosion of smartphones for all, even the very young. And that's where we are today. And those things can be good, right? I mean, communication, safety. I remember the first Motorola flip phone our family had, went to my wife. She was a realtor and traveling around, and for safety it was really good. It was nice to be able to get a hold of her, or she could call me. And so it really felt good having that. The thing is, everything changed by this thing called algorithms, and those things are created to control the pathway over the internet, okay, is the best way to describe it. And so there's a guy, an ex-Google tech, who said, Joe Toscano, he said, if the algorithm of the internet were a highway, the internet would think we need more car accidents. And he said that because people slow down to look at car accidents. And so the algorithm's watching what people are looking at and giving you more of it. Have you noticed that if you do a search for a product, all of a sudden all of your news and even your Facebook and everything else starts migrating to that direction and that same product search? And so they're doing that. There's a dark secret, though, about all of this, and that is the tech moguls ban screens in their own homes. The guys that make this and get rich ban screens in their own home. And they'll tell you that. Now, isn't that something? I'll sell you a product, but I don't dare let my kids use it. Okay? This quote from Dr. Carey, she's famous as being a parent. Part of this is an article she wrote about where they don't allow their kids to do it. She went to a school, she did a series of classes. While she was there, her son got caught surfing the internet during history class. And she said, I think here I am, and that's all I do is teach not to do this. And my son did it. And his answer was, I don't know why. I don't know why. Christian leaders have spoken much about the many advantages and disadvantages of digital communications. Probably his greatest advocate that I know is James Graham. And he and Mike have paired together and done some phenomenal blogs that get views all over the world, high volume views, and I recommend from us. But there are some bad side effects like tech addiction, manipulation of social media by ideologies and corporate interests, okay? There's the degradation of people talking to people today. I really, if the best way to get a hold of me really is a phone call and leave a message. Second best is a text, and I'll look at it in 3 or 4 hours. But that bothers some people. I've got an 80-year-old friend who is a tech addict, and if I don't answer his text within 15 minutes, then he calls me and he's snarky. You know what snarky is? It's like, dude, just because you got my phone number doesn't mean you own my calendar, So we have this degradation, and meaningful relationships are declining. Manipulation is a horrible thing. Big tech hired neurologists to design hardware and software and content in a way that would orchestrate, direct, and perhaps overpower our eye-brain connection in the highly competitive attention economy. So they're using neurologists, and they're using lab rat studies to find out what we're going to look at. All right? So this is a common scene, isn't it? And it's a sad one for those of us who are pre-tech. We see that and we wonder, are they on a date? Is that they're paying a lot of money to get a meal, to be with each other, and neither one of them is there, except in body. It's really sad. And then the young people sitting in a row texting each other. Wow. Texts fail. Do they deliver emotion?
No.
Do they even deliver intent very well? No. They just don't. Here's the addiction facts from last year. 210 million people worldwide are addicted. That's a big number. Okay? Reports of who's addicted over there on the right. 18 to 20-year-olds, 40% of them. 22-year-olds. 23 to 38, 37. Whoa, now we just hit you guys. 39 to 54, 26. And 55 to 64, and I'm so offended. They don't have my age bracket in there. 91% of Gen Zers, that is ages 16 to 24, use social media. 51% report constant use. Now that's scary enough. Wow. 2 hours and 23 minutes a day on average globally. Well, I knocked that average way down. Some of you do too. But it's when you get into the addiction thing, now we have teenagers at 9 hours a day. Every day on social media. 9 hours. That's brain control. Yikes. Yikes. And I'm one of them. And here's one that's really worrisome. Teens who spend 5 hours a day on their phones are 2 times more likely to show depressive symptoms. Not only that, they're more likely to question the value of their own existence because they look at a false world through the internet. Isn't that something? Young, single females. These are marrying age women. Are addicted to social media more than any other group. Isn't that something? 50% of people caught driving while using their phones weren't talking on them. They were checking out Facebook and Pinterest and WhatsApp and all these other ways of getting communication. 71% of people sleep with or next to their phone every night. Now, if you use it for an alarm clock, I understand that. I understand if you're a doctor, you need to be contacted, but 71% of us? Wow. 10%, this is weird, of teens check their phones more than 10 times a night. 10%. Wow. So you look at this chart, and something happened in 2008 and 2009. And you look at 2011 versus 2021, where teenage girls, 36% of them were feeling persistently sad or hopeless. 21% of boys. Now it's gone up to 57% feel sad or hopeless. And 29%. And these are the different age brackets. They show that 35 plus pretty much not being affected like this. We are sacrificing our children to the techno-Moloch. That's what we're doing. Do you know who Moloch was? It was an idol that they worshipped in Palestine, and they would sacrifice their children, their babies to him in horrible ways I won't describe, so that they could be blessed by Moloch. So, what happened right here when this chart just shoots up? This did. That's what happened. Came out in 2008. And then the sales just went like this, and that chart went like that. 240 million Americans check Facebook every day. How many people live in America? About 360 million, something like 350 here. Yeah. 74% of all Americans. Isn't that wild? Here's a guy. I want to ask you a question. Do you allow the mind of Jack Dorsey to shape your world? Here's what Jack said. We can spend our time being disruptive, meaning what? What's he talking about? Violent protests. Disruptive protests. We can spend our time being disruptive, or we can be thoughtful and architect a revolution. I think, then he says at another time, I think Twitter is the closest thing we have to a global consciousness. And I believe the world needs that right now. And what did he do to influence global consciousness? With an app called Twitter, used by more people worldwide than any other. What did he do? He restricted content. Theoretically, you could say anything you wanted on Twitter. Theoretically. But if you started preaching what the Bible teaches, you would be blocked. If you started questioning the mantra, this is what we all must do, you would be blocked. You would be described as delivering false information or unacceptable information. It's unacceptable. And so there he is, a thoughtful architect of a revolution. Billions of people connected to X. They may not be typing on it. I don't. But I get X posts. So here we are. Revolution. And the question is this the guy? Because he said there's an entire universe in every single tweet, and it all really depends on the content as far as how it's going to spread. And he realized if he could control the content, then he could control your mind. Because you are what you eat. Have you heard that one? Well, how about you are what you see on the internet? You are what is fed into you. There's 5 alarming, well, I said 5, I've got more than that, so I should have edited that. There's alarming symptoms of social media addict. One is sharing your life. There was a disturbing report on KTAB News Friday afternoon at 6 o'clock. Any of you were tuned into KTAB News? That's the original mass media's television, by the way. And so, but it started out, and there's poor old Ron, or whatever his name is, Bob Bartlett, yeah, Bob. And he said, boy, we've got some sad news today. And first news was a mother killed her 3-year-old daughter violently. Yeah, that's not a good way to start the news. And the second one was a person in Abilene, a woman in Abilene, found out that the pictures of her children she was posting on Facebook and she was posting on X had been taken and used by AI methodology and turned into child pornography with her children being the subjects. And there we are. My granddaughter's posting her baby pictures on there, just 10 at a time every day. Everything he does. Wow. Wow. You think we don't have a spiritual war? And how broad is it? I talked about the spiritual war for Ephesus, throne of Satan being there, but what? It's worldwide, isn't it? It's a worldwide spiritual war. Talking to a friend in Austria, he's an Iranian engineer that had to flee because he became a Christian. Didn't start out life as a Christian, and his parents aren't, but his wife and he are. And so he had to flee or die. And anyway, he's living in Austria now and pretty much in poverty. But he's glad he's there. because he's a Christian. He's not a complainer. The world is full of complainers. So he's living in a situation, and he's talking about raising his kids. And he said, my son is 13 years old. He's the only one in his class that doesn't have an iPhone. And I said, well, let me send you this, and maybe you can talk to him. His son is brilliant. His son was in a German class teaching the kids how to speak English. And the German teacher had to calm all that down because, the kid already knew German. So he speaks Farsi, German, and English. And he was doing that when he was 8. Doesn't have an iPhone. He'll be way better off. Depression because of comparison. What do we mean by that? Without reading all that stuff up there. But what's it mean? Depression because of comparison. James? You could be better?
You have this enough, you need that fruit.
Oh yeah, you don't have enough. You need more. Okay, that's good. Good. Yeah. Paul?
The problem with that comparison is that people always mask, and so they present themselves on social media as better than they are.
And then they're called influencers. Yeah.
So when that happens, and particularly when impressionable minds then compare themselves to this false standard of perfection, they fall short. And now they begin to say, something is wrong with me.
I started last week by talking about how all of this is driven in a left brain function, and we are craving a right brain offset. And what we're seeing is people are looking at, they're getting stuff without having analytical content or the emotion that goes with it. They're getting the story limited, sometimes even false. They're getting the pictures, but not all of them, not the big picture, just the ones that are selected to be sent. And so they are seeing that, while at the same time they are craving significance and meaning and the understanding of life and love. And here is a family that has love, and all I can do is watch that from afar on the internet and on Facebook. And it is a phenomenally damaging thing that is happening to the human brains, and particularly to the young ones. And so we have an increase in depression, which leads to sometimes an increase in suicide. So 2 Corinthians 12:10, for the sake of Christ then, I am content with weakness, insults, hardship, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. That is not the message going over social media. Not even close. Not even close. Folks, we are supposed to be radical Christians in our world, and now it's easier because all we have to do is think like that. Nothing is going to get me down because I've got a Savior and a God. I've got a Savior and I've got a God who loves me. And greater is He who is within me than he who is within the world. Philippians 4:11, not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content. Advertising has a design to create need. Need is a feeling of discontent. It may be minor, but if it can be grown, boy, I really need that. Wow. 1 Timothy 6:8, but if we have food and clothing with these, we will be content. Hebrews 13:5, keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For He has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. The world does not have gratitude. Christians, one of the greatest Christian attributes there is the attribute of gratitude. That's why I talked about the complainers. Complainers come into a church, and what do they do with gratitude? Yeah, they take it away. They want to take it away from you. Gives them power. Gives them power to take it away. Yeah, well, you may love Jesus, but did you know? They don't say it that way, though. We've got to learn. And we've got to focus. So have you ever heard of act like you want to feel? Paul, I know you teach self-talk. You've got to do that in counseling. It just because it works, doesn't it?
First person I ever heard say that was Paul Faulkner.
Yeah.
It's easier to act your way into a better way of thinking than it is to think your way into a better way of acting.
Okay, it is better to act your way into a better way of thinking than it is to try and think your way into a better way of acting. Grabbing a hold of yourself. That's what we're talking about. In the name of Jesus Christ. So by comparison, dissatisfaction, frustrated when you can't find your device. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. I know you would have to. Where is my cell phone? I mean, they're important, aren't they? By the way, men, how many of you always ask your wife and she typically knows where it is? I'd show of hands. Oh, come on.
No, she put it there.
You know, yeah. Diana, where's my cell phone? Oh, you left it over there on the coffee table, and it's, thank you. She can't run a remote, but she knows where everything is. It's just wonderful. So you freak out if you can't find it. Well, 1 in 10 checks them every 4 hours. Literally, you would turn the whole house upside down just to find your phone. Yeah.
I forget where I first heard the idea, but I heard some tech person say that their eventual goal is to make it possible to implant the cell phone into your body.
Well, yeah, that's Elon Musk. You're supposed to go, hello. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work. Goodbye. Yeah. And then how's it get to your eyes with the screen? I don't want to be there. I really don't. Yeah, Paul.
You may be going to get to this, but one of the most disturbing things to me about AI and the technology is that what is real and what is true is now difficult to be able to discern. We've learned that you cannot believe your eyes, you cannot believe your ears. So how does that impact us believing a God that we cannot see?
How many of you have seen on the internet, on Facebook or Pinterest, somebody will post a picture of Abraham Lincoln or who's the guy named Sam who plays in the Western movies? He's from Texas. He played in who? Sam Elliott. Yeah, they'll put his picture and then some quote. He never said that. But it gives it credibility, some credibility, I guess. And that may be even innocent. But then there's the deception with real motivation.
And if you're a
That is-
grandparent, you may get a call from your grandchild, and it sounds exactly like them, saying that he's in trouble and he needs some money. And you know your grandchild.
And here's who you wire it to. Yeah, and it is your grandson's voice.
It is, baby.
Yeah. And I'm calling on the jails. The reason it's not on caller ID is I have to use their phone. It all makes sense. Quick, send me money and get me out of jail. Agitated with no internet. We have an RV park. Boy, when they work on the internet, I get all these texts. The internet's down. Usually at night if they're working on it. Usually it's during the day and they're all worker bees and gone. But it's something. We get agitated as if the internet is so vital if it goes down for 10 minutes. Wow. Matthew 13:22, as for what was sown among the thorns, there is the one who hears the word but cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. Isn't that something? And that, I can see the devil working in that. Jesus talked about that. He used it in agrarian form, but it fits right into social media. Relationship strain is another one. Personal relationships can deteriorate as individuals distance themselves from family and friends. My own cousin, who married Diana's sister, see, cousins married sister, but not in an Arkansas way. And anyway, he got addicted to primary mass media of television and then his cell phone, and she divorced him. And I mean, she took nothing. She was so disgusted, she just walked out the door and never came back. And it was tough to talk to her again. She was an angry person because she bargained for a marriage, and she was being used as nothing but a prostitute on occasion. No relationship. Wow. Mood and emotional changes. Excessive use leads to anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, fear of missing out. I did not realize, and, I was talking to this couple back here at lunch, and Tyler, about FOMO. I was talking with you at lunch about FOMO, and I did not know that that was a real thing. My granddaughter used it to talk about her baby. We were keeping the baby, and we couldn't get him to take a nap. And she said, well, he's got FOMO. And we said, what's that? Fear of missing out. I've never even heard about it. But fear of missing out is, and I can realize, hey, if I need to check Fox News every 30 minutes, that's FOMO. That's the fear of missing out. If you got to check Facebook all the time, that's that fear of missing out. It drives compulsive checking of social media. Failed attempts to reduce use, that's a sign of addiction. We see, of course, in use of alcohol or drugs, there's a saying, oh, I can quit, I just can't get away from it. I can stop, but it's just for a time. Continued use despite negative consequences. That's sad, isn't it? I'm hurting myself, but I keep going. Wow. And then the physical and cognitive effects of poor sleep, decreased attention span, and reduced real-world social interaction are reported under the addicted. Ignoring important needs. There are people who have literally died because they were addicted to social media. They so let themselves go physically and sociologically that they just died. Teens skip school, work, ignore friends, postpone chores, countless hours of production and sales. Here I am, I'm running a roofing company about 10 years ago, and I got a guy, we're up roofing, and I turn around and here's a guy on his cell phone. And that was about the third time. And I said, would you please give me the cell phone? I'll give it to you back to you after work. Well, what if there's an emergency? I said, I'll tell you what, give her my phone number. Give her my phone number. Just like the old days. Call work. Got an emergency. We'll let you know. I'll take care of a real worry if there is an emergency. By the way, when was the last emergency you had? Well, we never have, but if we did. Okay. Compulsive use and preoccupation. We've kind of gone over that. Escalation. That's another one. Getting more and more and more. Because it's kind of like chemicals, like, nose spray. Nose spray back in the 60s and 70s was you just used it all the time. And we found out there was this thing called rebound, and we also found out that we had to use it more often all the time to keep our sinuses clear. And if you were ever using and abusing nose spray, to get off of it was phenomenally uncomfortable because you could go for a couple of days with a totally plugged up nose. And so that happens with internet use too. Look at this. I talked about what drives this. Look at that. Now this is a chart. The bottom graph is how much money they spend now to advertise through your computer or something like that, okay? Now they know the difference between you being on a cell phone and being on a computer. Okay? Cell phones go through service providers. They have to. So they're working through service providers. And look at what happens on the spending. They went from about 15 billion in 2017 for spending on computer advertising to a little over 50 billion this year. That's to advertise on your laptop and your desktop. But look what they did for the iPhone, for this. 300 billion. 600% more spent to advertise on your handheld device versus where you sit down at a computer, because they know what? It's with you. It's with you. May the 4th be with you. You know, I mean, here we are. So where are they leading us? Manipulation of social media users by ideologies and corporate interests is where I went to. And there's your iPhone sales, where it started. And that chart just goes zoom, following those sales.
And that doesn't include Android.
No. It's the same thing with an Android. Yeah, with this iPhone. I had to switch to iPhone because I had to switch to iPhone because everybody has an iPhone in my family. You know, you don't. Never. Good for you to hold out. Yeah. Oh, let's use FaceTime. I can't. Let me send you a pin. You can. Good for you, Paul. Paul has invested a phenomenal amount in his rebellion. So the voices we listen to, and I'm glad for you, Paul. Okay. I'm glad for you, Paul. Step 1, tuning out. That's what we talked about last week. Tuning out. You know, you have to turn it off, step away from your phone, TV, talk radio, social media, your watch, whatever it is, your tablet and your computer. You have to flip that switch that puts it on silent, walk away from it, not have it in your pocket or your hand, and give yourself some time. I recommend doing that to start the day and to end the day. Absolutely do that. A dedicated amount of time at committed times. It's a form of spiritual fasting, if you will, from the world. Exodus 19:5. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be treasured, my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. Isn't that something? But what voices are we listening to? That is the question. I think I just hit the wrong button. There we go. Step 2, tuning in. There's resources out there that actually are available to use on your phone, like eSword, or on, or there's Bibles that you can have on there. There's study Bibles that you can buy that are physical things. There's Bible study on websites like BibleRef.com. I recommend that one. Mike's lessons, he's got a phenomenal volume of lessons on the web that he and James have put together, and they are good. And you can look those up, and we can help you find those. John 10:27-28 says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them. Paul, you talked about the old person recognizing their grandson's voice that needs to be bailed out of jail somewhere, and the money's going to Pakistan. Jesus, do you know his voice? Is his voice getting your attention? That's the question. Because I give them, what does Jesus give you? Eternal life. Forgiveness of sins. What's the internet going to give you? Well, we just went through the list. You're going to be used by the internet, not given. You're going to be used, not given. Nothing, no one will snatch them out of my hand. Isn't that right, James? He was telling me that today. Listening and obeying Jesus. He's either Lord or nothing at all. Lord or nothing at all. And so that's what we work with in this church. Is Jesus your Lord? Or is he nothing at all? Because there is no middle ground. You can't be a fan of Jesus Christ. That doesn't get you in relationship with him. Well, I like Jesus. I got a little rubber one right here in front of my computer. I got a little rubber Jesus on my car. I don't care if it rains or freezes, as long as I've got my plastic Jesus there on the dashboard of my car. You know, that's just being a fan. You can buy the t-shirts. You can say the things that you need to say, but if you're not obeying him, and I want you to see this. Look at the ifs that are in bold and underlined. We're going to close. This really is near the end. If means there are conditions. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch that withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. We all know what that is and when that happens. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. Often I misuse scripture, but he said it, and we can believe it. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. That's it. If makes conditions. So, it's time for action. Last slide. Are we being consumed with worry and concern about stuff that is beyond our control? I've got a friend, he was an elder in the church, and he is so upset about the political environment right now. He destroys relationships. He's a Fox News addict. And did you know, and he's in a rage constantly. And how much impact is he having from Lubbock, Texas on Washington, D.C.? About as much as you and I can have. I get one vote sometimes. Has no direct relation to our lives. We can't be consumed by that. It involves no decision on our part. And is often not even true. It detracts from what we really could or should be doing. Thank you for your time. Next week, we're going to come back with a way to take the war in our community. Okay?